How are you so far? You happy? Are you here for another talk? Wow, you're so brave. I am used to this theater. I teach here every week. I am an academic. Yes, and I have degrees and the letters after my name. Because the university asked me to have all these letters in my business cards. And for me, being here is not so different because that's my everyday life, basically, teaching. But be with you for 15 to 20 minutes, it's difficult for me. Indeed. My name is Ailson De Moraes, not Alison. Okay? For those who are from England, I'm not a female. Sometimes people expect a lady. Many times. My insurance company for my car, I already gave up. Because every time I complain, they give me 15 pounds voucher. So I gave up because I could be very rich actually, every year. I'm from Brazil, south of Brazil. And I came from a very simple and, I would say, poor village. Every year I go back and I really enjoyed being there. Very poor place. Unfortunately, it did not develop much. Yes. Now, this is not my child, because actually my daughter is sitting right here in front of me. That's me when I was 7 years old. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever been bullied in your life? Have you? Have you ever been bullied by your colleagues in school? Or your friends, supposed to be friends, or your neighborhood friends? Have you ever been bullied? It's okay, you don't need to say anything. Yeah? What about if I would say to you, or if I would ask you the next question? Have you ever been bullied by your school teachers? Have you? Teachers are either they make you or they can destroy you, especially in primary and secondary school. When I was 7 years old, I remember very well one of my teachers. She crushed me in front of the whole class. She bullied me and she said to me, in front of the whole class, you would never be able to write and read Portuguese, my first language. What she doesn't know is that I teach today in 3 languages. And I write in 3 languages. And I go around the world to teach. Unfortunately, she already passed away. Otherwise, I would like to have a word with her. But I always meet some other very interesting teachers. And some of them really help me a lot. Keep this in mind. When I was a child, I was very creative. Remember, I couldn't do very well in school, but I was very creative. That was one of my first toys that I made myself with my friends. We really enjoyed it. We don't do this anymore, do we? Especially the Western world. We buy from Amazon, right? Or from Google, whatever. Yeah, we don't do things by ourselves anymore, especially the kids. It's easy, That was my first bike. My mom worked as a cleaner, cleaning houses. And she couldn't afford to buy me a new bike. So she bought me a second-hand bike. In fact, she worked for a few days in one of the rich families in the town. Only a few, by the way, yeah. And she was able then eventually to give me this second-hand bike. But I was so creative and imaginative that one day I transformed my bike. Yes, and I decided to do something different with my bike. But remember, I was not very good in school. That's a picture of a company. You can't see very well, but this is a multinational corporation called Gerdau, one of the top companies in the steel industry in the world, in Brazil. Guess what? I passed the exams to start working there when I was 13 years old. Strange? Of course, very strange, isn't it? I was the first ever young person to start working in an office for 48 hours a week. I asked permission from my parents and from the local judge. And the local judge signed the papers and allowed me to get the job. Changing is accelerating, believe me. Look around and you'll see. And how these changes will affect you personally or professionally, no one knows it. You don't know. And nevertheless, we are preparing kids in the primary and secondary school, especially for a world which we don't know. We have lots of possibilities. Yes, indeed, the internet is not only rubbish. Yeah? There are lots of things. We have freedom, at least in this country, or in Europe in general, and many other countries we have freedom. And we have more and more options. But sometimes we are suffocated by this freedom and options in our life. Yet, I'm sure you agree with me that we have junk, mediocrity, and rubbish a lot in our society today. Just look around and you'll see. Are you familiar, I'm sure you are, familiar with this research into the left and right hemispheres of the cerebral cortex? This one here. Have you ever seen this one before? This picture? If I would ask you, which side are you? Probably most of you here would say one or the other. Maybe you are very good in maths, logical maths, but not so good in music. Maybe you are very good in science, but maybe not so good in emotional intelligence. What about if I would say to you that you can be both? There are some research nowadays saying that, yes, indeed, we can bring together both sides of our brain. Nevertheless, GCSEs and exams in general, A-levels, even sometimes in university, they label us. You are either this or that. I really like to read. I have probably over 1,000 books in my office. And I say 2 office. Because one of them is my car. It's full of books as well. I enjoy reading. One of the philosophers and mathematicians that I like to read is Bertrand Russell. And he said that individual's genius is what? Someone who has unique qualities and talents. So everyone is a genius. Provide that you have some qualities, and I'm sure that all of you have. And if you don't have your talents yet, don't worry. Just practice. Go for your dreams. Find out your talents. We may have different talents in our lives. But sometimes we are suffocated by the system. And I'll prove this to you. Look what Bertrand Russell said. It is possible for some geniuses to be, and I would like you to think about yourself, not about myself, crushed in their youth and lost forever when the environment around them is unsympathetic. Remember my teacher? not very sympathetic with me. So I could be crushed forever just because of one of the teachers. And this is exactly what's happening in the educational system. Don't get me wrong, I am in the educational system, and I think we do amazing things. But sometimes what we see is a disorganized system which is still teaching our kids what we were taught in the 19th century, since the Industrial Revolution. We are not preparing them for the 21st century, really. If we still have GCSEs and exams, we are not preparing them very well. And there is a lot of discussion, always, especially in this country, but in many others. Bertrand Rousseau said also this: men and women, obviously, are born ignorant, not stupid. They are made stupid by education. Can you imagine that? Who teaches you the first mistakes in your life? Maybe your parents. But for sure, the second ones will be the teachers. That you are making mistakes. That you are stupid. But you are not. Since I start developing these 7 principles in my life, these ones that you are seeing in front of you, I start knowing more about myself and developing more myself. And by the way, I'd like to say to you that my first degree I finished when I was 33 years old in this country. I stopped studying for about 10 years. Can you imagine why I stopped studying? Obviously, I failed in exams and I hated education. So I stopped reading books and I stopped completely education for about 10 years of my life. I teach today. Curiosity. Are you curious in your life? What do you do to improve your curiosity? Kids are curious. When I give a talk in schools for very young kids, and I ask them, who is very intelligent here or curious? How many hands do you think I see? All of them, right? As I go to, for example, and give a talk to teenagers, 12, 13, 14, only half of them. When I give a talk to young people or adults, then even less of them, because we tend not to be more curious anymore. Are you persistent? Can you imagine if I was not persistent in my life, even after 10 years? Are you persistent on what you want for your life? What about consciousness? Are you conscient about who you are? Because if you don't know who you are, like Socrates said, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're doing this planet. Find out who you are. Your identity will show me the results of your life and how you are making a difference in our society, like many of the other speakers did, today here, saying to you. Are you imaginative? What do you do to become more imaginative? Looking at Facebook, what people are doing? Gossips around? Is this about imagination? No. By the way, don't forget, everything around us here was imagined before built and created. You see, the schools don't teach us how to be imaginative. They don't teach us much more about creativity, for example. And our organizations are desperate for imaginative and creative people nowadays. Science, art, logic, and imagination are together. But even in the university, they are not. Because we are so separate here. Don't tell my boss. We are so separate. The guys from the young fellows from the biochemistry, for example, don't know anything about management and business. Or the arts department and business. Well, we are not together, learning from each other. It seems to be, but we are not. We are very separated. 6th one, your body and your mind. I was doing some research about Leonardo Da Vinci, And guess what I have found out? He was very good with his body, looking after his body. We know that he was a scientist as well, and many other titles we give, to Leonardo Da Vinci, and he was a genius. But I found out that he was vegetarian. And so am I, since I was 20 years old. Strange, isn't it? I'm not asking you to be vegetarians, by the way. You don't need to be. But more than that, Leonardo da Vinci used to go for long walks and do a lot of exercise. So, of course, your body and your mind are connected. Tell me what you are thinking, and I know who you are. Can I ask you to do an activity when you leave today? Draw yourself. Doesn't matter if you're not very good. Don't worry. Nobody is going to give you a mark. Yeah? You're not going to fail. Draw your body and see who you are through your body. Finally, contemplate holiness, because we are all spiritual. We are all together. Contemplate the wholeness that makes us as individuals and geniuses in this planet. But don't forget, most people never figure out who they are or the genius within themselves, even if they have degrees. That was me. In the last 5 years, I have been receiving the best rewards as a teacher in this university. Do you think I'm not proud of myself? Of course I am, considering who I was before. I have my own office. Isn't that great? Yes. I gave talks in Oxford, in Cambridge, in different countries, and in another language, by the way. And I teach here. You can see one of the pictures there. And I also run half marathons. And I look after my body. Okay, I'm not 100% vegetarian. Once in a while, I eat fish. Okay? Don't worry. Ladies and gentlemen, you are unique. And you are a genius. Believe me. You have a genius inside of you. Please follow me and unleash your geniuses. Thank you very much.